Hello and welcome to Let's Go Speaks. Today is Tuesday, July 31st. This is episode 200 and something. How are you? So let's get two things visually out of the... Okay, let me roll that back. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel in Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. I'm your hostess. Let's get two things out of the way right off the bat. I'm not wearing my glasses because the glare is insane today. There's actually not been any sunlight for days. We've had constant rain. But no matter where I seem to sit, because I have every single curtain pulled to try to get enough light to record, I can't actually angle my body in any way that I'm not glaring glasses at you. So that's weird visual thing one. Weird visual thing two, I totally do have a cold sore. And I don't feel like I need to tell you necessarily, but I also feel like you might be like, what is on her? What is happening? You might be like freeze framing, like, what is on her face? That's what's happening. I got them all the time as a kid, like all the time as a kid, because I was so stressed out all the time. Like I really got them every year and they were terrible. They would come like all the way from here up into my nose. And I get one on the corners of my mouth. Oh man, they were awful. All through college, I would get one at least once a year. Because your immune system, man, it does not do well with stress. But now, they have that medicine that's over the counter. What is it, Abreva or whatever? Magic. For sure works. It's amazing and life-changing. And B, also I just constantly try to reduce stress. However, the week before SSK, I was super stressed out trying to get ready. Actually, like 2 weeks before. Actually, like the month of June. You know, sometimes you just get yourself into like that wheel and you just like you don't even realize it's happening because you're the frog in the frying pan and it's just heating up and heating up and heating up and you don't really realize it. Or like how long it's been happening until like there's some sort of pressure release and then you're like, oh, yeah, stress. So those are the two things right off the bat. Okay, let's do another silly thing right off the bat. Last time, okay, let me do one non-silly thing and then a silly thing. Last time I recorded was a bonus episode. It was all about the SSK breakdown. And I actually think everybody who won a Patreon prize has emailed me, but I'm not exactly sure. Which I know makes it sound so ditzy, but I've put them in like my to-do file instead of my done file. So just in case, you can watch the first few minutes of that, actually like I think it's like 3 minutes in or something, of that bonus SSK episode and you can make sure that you're not a prize winner. But then silly thing number two is the last regular episode with regular knitting content, I had a headband on. By the way, since then I've given myself another haircut. So this is not going to be the best demonstration. However, I should have just brought a new fabric piece. However, some of you are asking about my headband. Let me tell you, it's super complicated. And I guess I'll share my secrets with you. You want to see my super fancy headband pattern? Take a piece of fabric. And I use salvage to salvage, so the whole width of the fabric. Batik works best because, as you can see, batik is printed on both sides. It's not printed on both sides, but the color saturates into both sides. So there's not an obvious right and wrong from a distance. So batik is the best. Then literally you just cut the salvage and rip it. So these are just ripped salvages. Cut the salvage, rip it. This one is like 5.5 inches long, but this one is a little bit wide. But anywhere from 4 to 6 inches is fine. And then you like wad it up. Now I actually probably should put on my glasses so I can actually see what I'm doing. So you wad it up. You put it on your head. You tie a knot. And then that's the cute bit in the front that's like kind of like lumpy and textury. And then you just tuck it under itself. That's right. Tuck it under itself. So you don't need the full salvage, but I do like to have the extra so that it's not tucking itself right there. super fancy headband. The more you know. Ding. So, there's that. Right? I'm the fanciest. So let's continue on. Lots to talk about this week. We've got knitting. We've got spinning. I have a non-knitting, non-fiber, non-wool book thing. Non-craft even. Well, craft because it's cooking. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's start off with shenanigans. So much shenanigans. Not exciting to you shenanigans, perhaps. But they're those shenanigans that, you know, you've been putting off forever. They're house shenanigans. Oh my gosh. So, all summer I've been like, well, as soon as SSK's over, I'm going to do X. And as soon as SSK's over, I'm going to do Y. And as soon as SSK's over, I'm going to do Z. So we had to do XYZ this week. And it's been exhausting. If you're newer to the show, I live in an old, slightly dilapidated house. Okay, it's not dilapidated by 50 years ago standards. Maybe that's actually, okay, maybe it's not dilapidated by like 80-year ago standards. But it's dilapidated by modern standards that most people hold, okay? Not necessarily us, but you know, it's a little wonky. Like things are obviously, it's like 100 years old. And things like have not been taken care of consistently over its lifespan. We've been here for a long time, so I'm not trying to blame anybody else. I'm just saying. So we have had, it's been one of those things where, again, this is the reason, just like deep house cleaning, right? Like, confession, I am not a deep house cleaner, okay? I am like, make sure that like if I have to be rescued by EMTs, I won't be humiliated. I mean, that's kind of like my house cleaning standard. Make sure that there's no like gross stuff, but definitely baseboard dust all the time. You know what I mean? So I did like the deep kitchen clean. Just like that. You think you're the dirtiest person in the universe. So it's like that for house repairs, right? Okay, so the reason I don't like to do deep, like the reason I don't like to get like down and dirty cleaning is A, like there's way more fun stuff to do all the time. But B, like actually the bigger reason that I don't like to do it is because every time I start it, I see 9 gajillion other things that need to be cleaned, right? Like you're like cleaning underneath, like we have like a workbench in the kitchen, like literally, like it's a work, but it works perfectly for us, and we use it like as a countertop and working space. So I'm like underneath of it, cleaning off like the legs of it, and like the air return that pulls air down into the furnace, which is like in our house they're like huge, and they get dust on them in such an insane way. I don't mean like dust, because that really is an understatement. I mean like dust bunnies, corpses, like just dusty dust. So like you're down there cleaning that stuff, and then you notice like that there's like a weird grimy spot in the corner that somehow you've never cleaned for 15 years. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I can see the underneath side of the microwave, and that's horrifying. I didn't even know that could get dirty. And then you're like, oh my gosh, what is that on the blender? It's like that kind of thing, but with house repairs. Actually, it's been both, because I did do the deep kitchen clean, so that was horrifying. By the way, also, like, my fat body is on the kitchen floor trying to, like, clean the undersides of things, which is super fun. And, like, everything is just, like, wet and gross because you've been, like, again, there's just water and, like, soap and vinegar everywhere, and you're, like, cleaning. It's, like, disgusting. And then, and you inevitably find, like, you know, those 3 plates you broke during the year or whatever. Like, you find all of those invisible shards that you could never find with a mop. Suddenly you find them with your own flesh. So you have, like, Pyrex, like, dinnerware shards jammed in your fat armnets. So that happened. And then also, Then we're also like, then I thought I'll also paint my dining room ceiling because it really needed to be painted. It was like super grubby. Like last year we painted the living room and the front room, which is like my studio, like work room. Studio seems a little bit overinflated for what it is. So the comparison between the two ceilings has been bothering me for an entire year. So finally we decided to paint them. Tova and I painted it. It was not pleasant, but now it's painted and it's like so nice looking. Except that's also the room that my husband has insisted remain paneling for the last 15 years I've been here, 14 years, something ridiculously long. I went, no. He's insisted. Have I told you, have I confessed that I have a room full of wood paneling? Actually, I have 2 rooms of wood paneling, but one of them is painted. The other one is full on 70s wood paneling. Now, it is not, there are some paneling that I've seen that I've been like, okay, it's not that bad, but it's still paneling. It's still woody and dark. And he's insistent on keeping that room that way. So I've actually just turned that room basically into the library, like every wall is shelving. So really I've been okay with it being paneling. Because I mean, maybe like 12 square feet of that wall even shows, because it's just like above the bookshelves and like around the edges of the secretary desk. And then like there's like built out closets that they added in, which I'm thankful for, don't get me wrong. At some random time when they were taking down plaster, or probably not taking down plaster, but just putting up paneling on top of it to try to hold it in. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so the reason this came about, let me back that up even more. The reason this came about was not because I've been like trying to patiently, again, it's not been a huge deal because, again, I've just been like, whatever. I don't even see that much of that wall anyway. It's fine. But he had to paint the trim, the base, the molding trim, because he's like that guy. Like, he's like, oh, no, you don't tape anything out. You just freehand it. And I will be honest with you. I normally am like a taper all the time. But because that paneling is wooden and it's now 50 years old probably. And even though I have treated it since, like oiled it and like, you know, beeswaxed it and stuff like that. Like, it's still, the last time we painted trim in that room, because our house is a 4 square. I think that's what they're called. It's like completely, it's 4 rooms downstairs, well, it's actually only 2 up. But like the rooms are all super connected with these big wide doorways. It's very arts and craftsy, which I dig. But we've had to paint the adjoining room trim. And so I taped that out. And when I pulled off the painter's tape, some of the paneling kind of came with it a little bit. And I may have used a marker to try to cover it up. And I may have been successful. But anyway, so he was painting the trim without tape because, again, I was concerned about them. And he totally jacked it up. Not horribly, like you can definitely take goof off and like a Q-tip and go around it. But when he was like, you're right, we should just paint this room, I was not going to argue. So, but now of course now we have another room to paint. So now I'm like, why did I think that was a good idea? But anyway, so painting the ceiling of the room is just like, again, you're like, oh my gosh, this plaster. Now luckily that ceiling plaster is actually in pretty good shape. Upstairs in my daughter's room, however, has been the other project, is that we're preparing to tear out half of her window wall, which is old plaster and lathe, and put up either wainscoting or something, because at one point there was like strange windowsill leakage, and so like she has that kind of like bubbling wall, like there's definitely a person who's going to jump out of there any second because your house is haunted. Because somebody at one point in every room upstairs decided to put wallpaper everywhere. And I don't think it was because wallpaper was a trend. I mean, that's possible. But I secretly think it's because the plastering was like degrading slightly in places. And so they were like, just put some wallpaper up. That'll hold it in place. So her bedroom wall has that weird, super textured wallpaper, which we painted over since. But it's still there. So while we're like trying to prep the kind of area, like I didn't remove all the plaster, but we removed the area that was like actually the most affected. And the lathe is all really good under it. Like there's actually very minimal damage. It was just a slight area of plaster damage. Slight. But of course, as I'm removing this very small area of plaster and like preparing to figure out how to remove the other part, I'm like, well, I should just, that stupid wallpaper is there. I hate that stupid wallpaper. We should just take this wall's plaster down and like, we'll put up drywall, because then it'll even be cheaper than just putting up wainscoting or something under this bottom half. And then it's like, by the way, if you're an actual person who does houses and knows things, please don't like, you're going to be like, that's not even an option, lady. Just don't ruin my life right now. Just don't even tell me. Okay, tell me if it's actually like a really bad idea, but it's not like I can see outside. Like there's like so much lathe in those walls. Those walls have like exterior walls and then like a million tiny boards of them for the lathe and the plaster. And all of the plaster that's between the lathes is also really in good shape. It was just like the outer plaster. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot about this, but whatever, it's stressful. So then of course you're like, okay, fine, we're just gonna take out this whole wall of plaster. And then you're like, how am I gonna take out a whole plaster wall? And then you're like, well, I guess we're gonna do that wall. We might as well just take out all 4 walls, because I mean, come on, they look like they've been wallpapered at some point, and who knows what's going on under there. They could fall down at any second. And then you're like, and then that ceiling, I mean, that's definitely plaster, and the ceilings have been wallpapered. Which makes me think it's not a fad, like the wallpaper fad. It was actually like a, sky's falling kind of thing, right? So then you're like, oh, we should probably just do that. And then I'm like, oh, if we replace the ceiling with drywall, then we need to get one of those. It just escalates. And then of course, if you're doing that, well, then we might as well just rent a dumpster and get one of those chutes that goes out the window and tear down all the plaster upstairs, because it's all in immediate like danger of just. And then you're just like, and then it goes to a place where they're like, okay, well, now we're either going to burn the house down or just die here. Like, there's no in between. Like, you know what? Like, that is the week we've had. I'm so tired. And we still have an entire tree in our backyard. It looks like we've been attacked by, like, ninja beavers. But SSK was nice. I did an episode about it. Oh my god. Oh, homeownership is crazy. Anyway. I need those 2 chicks and a hammer ladies to just come and gut my house. No, I don't. Because no, I don't. I really don't actually want that. Like, I don't even know what the fancy thing is at this moment. Like, I don't need tavertine. Is that even a thing anymore? Is that even what it's called? I'm just making stuff up. But I don't need all that fancy stuff. I really don't. Like, I don't need craziness. I just need maybe no wallpaper on the ceilings. Whatever, I was asking too much. Ceilings are dry. No water getting in. We're fine. It's all just superficial stuff. It's totally okay. But I tell you, once you start worrying about anything that's superficial, then it just escalates. It's just such a crazy place. Right? That's how they get you. That's how they get you. Then you're just walking through Home Depot to get another gallon of ceiling paint. And then you're like, well, clearly we probably need a new dishwasher and dryer. Washing machine and dryer. And then you're just like, well, now that's another gajillion dollars. Well, and then you're like, no, your washing machine and dryer work just fine. And the fact that they are like 20 years old, 15 years old, probably means they will actually last another 20 years versus buying a new one, which will only last 3.5. Which brings me to my next topic of conversation, which was not at all planned, but last weekend we were having breakfast with my husband's sister and her husband and their children and then their children. Party of 13. It's a little out of control. At one point, because they called like the night, because originally they were just gonna like come over for coffee, not the whole crew, just the brother and the sister and the brother-in-law. And then like they called the night before and they were like, oh, we should just all meet for breakfast. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, I wish they would have let me know sooner. I could just made breakfast for everybody and that would have been, and then I was like, that is the dumbest thing you've ever thought. Don't think that. I don't know any of these people well enough. There are 3 children that you don't know at all. Don't even, why did you even think that? But luckily, I was saved. Yes, Tova?
For food.
My daughter is still home from summer break for last week, so she's scavenging. Oh, so one of the little tiny children was playing with a phone, and then we were talking about phones, and like I was like, yes, there's like Apple is just going to constantly start shrinking redundancy to the point where you have to get a new phone every year, and nobody will ever know that when their parents were children, you could have buy a phone that would last for 20 years. Like when I was growing up in Russellville, Ohio, we had a rotary phone that had been in the house forever. We actually did not have phone service because we were poor. So we just used phone, what are those called? Public payphones, which by the way, our town did not even have. But we did have a nice landlady who lived next door and we could use her phone if there was an emergency or like if our family needed to get a hold of us for some reason or another. But anyway, that phone was already like 20 years old. It was still in totally fine working order. That phone probably still exists somewhere. Unfortunately, probably in a landfill. But if you plugged it in, it'd probably still work. Anyway, other rant. Old lady rant. By the way, speaking of old lady rants, not that any of you are old ladies, but I totally posted on Instagram last week that we took our daughter, I took my daughter to get her ears pierced at the mall. Everybody calm down. I have actually had professional piercings at piercing parlors. I've had my nose and my eyebrows pierced. So like I did actually attempt to do the professional piercing route. However, I will just be honest with you, after I called 2 reputable places that I knew of and they would not accept anybody under 18, I was just like, I give up, let's go to the mall. So we went to the mall. And I posted a picture of her on Instagram, which was very cute. But then the best part of the whole situation is that like 100 and something people posted like the story of their ear piercings, which was so cute. So I apologize that I did not respond to you all, but they were darling and I loved them so much. There was lots of ice cubes and sewing needles. I feel like I saw 1 sewing needle and potato, which by the way, I feel like that was a thing when I was a kid. How dangerous was that? Like how many bacteria are on a potato even if you clean it? What were we thinking? I totally remember that being a thing though. I got my ears pierced at Van Loonen's, which was like a small little department store that was not like in a mall, but it was just like a freestanding, it was kind of like a Kmart. Like it was more of a discount department store than like a McAlpin's or a Shillito's. I don't think either of those exist anymore. But I had terrible problems with mine, probably because they did it with like a rusty nail. I don't even know. I'm sure they didn't actually clean anything. I had terrible trouble with mine. They were swollen and red and they were awful and it was just terrible to get them to heal. So I was really hesitant to let Tova get hers done because I wanted to make sure she was old enough to take care of them herself. So we would not have as many problems, hopefully. And she has since had no trouble at all. Who knows? Whatever. But anyway, so that was all to say thank you for all of your super cute comments. I apologize, I couldn't reply to all of them. And Instagram even cut me out from liking all of them, but thank you. I read them all and they were all delightful. Somebody's mom had a friend who was a surgeon and then she pierced her ears as a surgeon with non-dissolvable sutures, so they had to wear sutures in their ears until they healed, which I thought was terribly cute and now would be totally punk rock and very cool, but was not at the time. So anyway, I enjoyed them all. Okay, what else do we need to talk about today? Oh my gosh, should we ever talk about knitting? Let's not be silly. Let's not be silly. Oh, so further on the tree pile though, I do need to tell you this because it involved me being shut down by authorities, which is always entertaining. But so part of this whole issue with the tree is that we're sketchy people, and so we just hired some sketchy dude to cut down our tree, which means they did not take away the brush, which means that we have to take care of it. My husband was convinced that we would just have like a fire and just burn the leaves and the tree parts. That did not go well. Let me just discuss. It was when it was like 95 degrees. Of course, now it's like 75 degrees, whatever. It was like 95 degrees, so super hot. So I'm out there in overalls with not even a sports bra. It's one of those Hanes Comfort bras, so it's like you can't actually wear it. Well, you can do whatever you want. I would not feel comfortable wearing it in the public because you can see through it almost. It's like if you look close enough. And overalls, so no shirt. But I'm in my backyard, so whatever. My neighbor's yard totally does look over my backyard. One side's abandoned though, so it's fine. I'm in our backyard and we're burning this brush, and all of a sudden we hear the sirens, the fire sirens, and we see the fire truck go up our street. But then it just says then it disappears. We're like, oh, okay. Well, maybe something else is going on. Next thing I know, they're coming down the alley. And then there's a bunch of firemen piling into the abandoned house's backyard so that they can tell us over our fence, as I am not wearing a shirt. And also, like a bandana and my giant sunglasses. So I am basically the hottest I've ever been. Let's face it. Actually, literally the hottest thing I've ever been because it's so hot. And we have a giant fire going. Well, it wasn't giant, but I mean, you know. And by the way, we do have a fire pit. Like, not like one of those braziers or whatever, but like an actual like area that is like cordoned off with like fire brick in our yard, like an open area on the ground. We have the fire hose out because we know that things can get crazy. We're being very conscious. I was the fire captain in my college house for 4 years. 3 years. I apologize. I was not my first year. I was the fire captain in my college house for 3 years. I have credentials. We're burning. They totally shut us down. Yeah, you can't do that here. What? What do you mean we can't do this here? You cannot have that inside city limits. So, like, actually, I'm totally such a rule follower. Like, in an obnoxious way. Like, there's a reason I play a lot of board games. I love a rule. I like to know what I'm supposed to do in a social situation. Right? I like to have boundaries established. If I choose to go against those boundaries, A, it's a rarity. B, I will be so sick to my stomach the whole time that even if I'm pretending I'm not, I totally am. So the fact that this man came and just shut us down, normally, if you asked me how I would react to that situation, I'd be like, I would be crawling. I would run. Like, I would just run and make my husband deal with it. Like, I would just run into the house. But instead, I don't know if I was empowered by the heat or maybe I was just high off of all of those leaves I had been breathing. But I was like, what do you mean we can't have this fire? I was not overly sassy, okay? It's just like moderately sassy. Ma'am, you cannot have that fire in the city. And so then they left. We shut everything down. My husband was like super nice and like very much like, oh, we'll do it. I think he was like, my wife's crazy. Don't set her off. We don't know what can happen. She's a powder keg. So anyways, we put out the fire. I was all, and I went inside and checked the fire regulations. You could totally have a fire in the city. You could totally burn brush in the city. You can't burn leaves. So while I would normally have just like walked over to that fire department and just been like, bah, 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 I couldn't because technically, yeah, we were burning leaves. By the way, the fire department is literally 4 doors down. I was all like, who's that narc who told on us? And then I was probably like, oh, yeah, it was probably some dude, like one of the firemen doing his PT was like, what is that? whatever. So now we just have so much brush in the backyard. We're gonna like rent a chipper. Or my husband's idea is that we're gonna take all the leaves off of all of the branches, bag those leaves, wait till we can start putting leaves in the trash pickup, which is like November 2nd. Maybe premarital counseling should involve you problem solving how you would deal with an entire tree in your backyard. I'm just saying. I think it's a valid thing. I'm not a member of the clergy, but if I were, that's what would happen. Oh my gosh. So, madness. Okay, so that's the last shenanigan. I apologize. There was a lot of shenanigans, but come on. It's been a minute since we've talked. I'm just saying. Okay. Oh, I did forget to mention that I'm actually quite glad that the fire department shut us down because those leaves, like the whole day, I was nauseous. It's very noxious to burn leaves. It's not a good idea. There's a reason you're not allowed to burn leaves. Not good. Okay, so one thing I also wanted to show you though was that from my library this week. Actually, it wasn't this week, but it's been a minute. I got this book. It's called Bake from Scratch. Artisan Recipes for the Home Baker. Oh, it's by a dude. By Brian Hart Hoffman. Isn't that terrible? All of the pictures are of women's hands, it seems like. They tricked me. Not that I wouldn't like this book if it were written by a man, but just saying. Would have liked to known. See, like, all of the pictures are of women's hands. I've been tricked. Anyway, I still think it's a beautiful book. Would I recommend it for purchase? I'm not sure because, let's face it, if you like cookbooks, you already have like 9 million cookbooks. But I do highly recommend that you check it out from your library because it's gorgeous. Look at this. Like, this is actually not the most gorgeous picture, but I love caramel cake, so I had to show you that one. It's big, it's meaty, and it's matte paper stock. And the photography is gorgeous. I mean, just oh my gosh, right? Italian cream cake. Why is it delicious? And it's actually got quite a lot. It's like the perfect level of fanciness, right? Like, it's all very approachable, yet more, I would say, towards your weekend baking. Not that there's not everyday stuff in here, but it's not. There are a few higher end recipes that do include higher end ingredients, but overall, I do feel like it's an approachable book. Oh my gosh, and look at this. Right? Chai butternut squash bunt. Look at it. So does that make sense? Like, I feel like, you know, sometimes it's a hard line to walk, and again, and most of it comes down to personal preference. But sometimes it's a hard line to walk between being special, like being a special occasion. I don't really want to say special occasion, but just, again, more weekend baking. More than just every day, but not going so over the top that somebody who is not living next door to a Trader Joe's or a super high-end grocery can make these things. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I don't know why I marked that one, but like, okay, so here's one of the fancier ingredients, which is rosemary, fig, marsala, round challah. Round challah. Look at it. Did you get food? Did you get ramen? Yes. Isn't it gorgeous? It's insanely beautiful. But even so, they are still dried figs. You know, they're not, I don't know, I've never seen fresh figs in our grocery store. Like, ever. Oh my gosh. And let me say, I'm also not like a stuff in bread person. Meaning, like, I I will like a dried fruit or something in a bread or a nut in a bread, but I'm never like I'm not a big meat or cheese in bread person. But, oh my gosh, what is this? Maple bacon cheddar pickle loaf. Okay, that doesn't, I don't even know, like this, it's only because this picture is gorgeous. And I really love bread and butter pickles right now. It's so gorgeous. So anyway, like I said, I don't know that I highly recommend, Linzer cookies with lemon curd. Okay, I have never even heard doing that, and that makes brilliant sense. And also, lemon curd is the most beautiful thing ever. So it has a wide variety, right? Like it has cakes, it has layer cakes, it has single layer cakes, it has yeasted breads, it has yeasted sweetbreads, it has quick breads, it has cookies, it has bar cookies. I mean, it has such a lovely, it has pastry. It has such a lovely variety. And the photography is gorgeous, and it is one picture per recipe. And it is just so enjoyable. So, I just wanted to let you know that is gorgeous. Artisan Recipes for the Home Baker is an exactly appropriate subtitle. That is exactly what it is. Okay, let's talk about wool stuff. Are you ready? Okay. So, knitting or spinning. I finished my Hello Yarn. This is, I hadn't tied the, I can't believe I found the tag. Somehow I had not tied the tag onto the skein. And yet I found the tag. I don't know how it happened, people. I also found these buttons I've been looking for literally an entire week. I had lost my remote for the camera, and I found these, even though I had looked in the same place for where these were for like twice, I think. I found them there while I was looking for this. And then I actually found this too. Do you need me to find anything for you to do? I'm having a good day for it. It's been a really bad week for it, but a good day. So anyway, this is my Hello Yarn. This is the colorway Moon, and it was the April Club colorway, and this is BFL, and it's probably a sport weight, maybe a DK, so somewhere in there, which is kind of like my default spin. Short backward draw, and I really like it. It's beautiful. Her fiber is always gorgeous, but you don't need me to tell you that. And then also, I have been working on, it's here somewhere, I promise. I have a bobbin of, also from Hello Yarn, the May colorway in 80/20 merino wool silk in the agate. Now that's showing a lot more of the reddy foxy color. It has a lot of the browns and then this neutral, which almost has a little bit of blue to it. So I have 4 ounces of that, and then I'm spinning it with, and then I'm doing 4 ounces of this, which is Into the World Mirroring colorway, which was December 2017's club colorway in the Tarhi Bamboo Silk blend. And so it is very much like this amped up with more yellows in it. So this does have a little bit of a blue tinge in some of the neutral places. So this is definitely just amped up for that. Normally I don't split my fiber into smaller pieces. Like I might do half or even thirds, but this I've broken into what? 8s, 2, 4, 6, 8, I think, 8 or 9. And normally I don't do that because it can't, if you have multiple colors, if you have a lot of colors in your braid, it can subdue them. But actually that's what I wanted for this, because it is a much more vibrant or stronger color representation. I did want to strip it out a bit more, just to try to make it slightly more muted than having big chunks of this brighter blue color. Does that make sense? So normally I don't do that, but in this case I did. And I actually did in this one too. Again, I just wanted it to kind of just be a little bit more muted because it is very neutral and earth tony anyway. I wasn't concerned about that. And this really does only have basically 3 colors in it. It has like that fox color, a chocolatey brown, and then this natural color with just a tiny bit of blue to it. So there's that. So that's one thing I'm working on. And then the other thing I've done since I've seen you is I have washed and picked the other half of my CVM fleece that I purchased at the fiber event this year, Greencastle. So, where did I put that lock at? Here it is. So this is what she looks like. Now, this is a darker representation of her fleece, like definitely on the darker end of her color variation. But, right. So I washed it, and I just washed it in the sink with Blue Dawn. It only required 1 wash with a couple kettlefuls of boiling water into the hot sink water. And then just 2 rinses. Similarly, just hot water. So I washed her, and I washed them in lingerie bags because it just makes it easier to keep everything together. So then I washed, and then I just picked it all by hand, which that sounds more complicated than it is. Really, when you're picking, because my friend came over while I was doing it, it's like, what are you doing? What happens is lots of time, not the cut end, but the tip end, the end that's on the outside of the sheep, when you wash it, so this end, and you can even see it right here, right? Like this is very much more open, and this is more compacted and clumpy. This sheep had been jacketed, so there's not dirt. I mean, there's a little bit of dirt in it, but it's not like mud or anything that's making that happen. It's just, you know, the coat is pressing down against it, plus her lanolin is in there. And so these tips just get a little sticky togethery. More so in certain places than others. Like these, when you wash them, are very easy to break apart. But some of the areas, the tips are much tinier and indefinite. Well, I don't know how to say that. Like instead of it being this big hunk that's like grouped together, it'll just be a little tiny piece that's glued together. And so those tend to be harder to, those require more picking when you're doing it, because these will just like kind of break. Like if I wash this and dry it, these will just really easily come apart. But the finer ones are a little bit more difficult. I don't know why, physics-wise or Aggie-wise. But so yeah, you're just gonna take a bunch of the fleece, and then you just pull it apart. Like you just do that. It's basically picking it apart, and you're just breaking up those ends so that when you drum card it or whatever you're gonna do, that those ends don't have a tendency to break off or create neps or just remain intact in your bat, because that's not nice either. Because just when you're spinning it, it'll just create a lumpiness that you don't necessarily want. But so yeah, so it's like this is only half the fleece. Actually, it might be slightly more than half the fleece, because no, I think it's just about half. So yeah, isn't that great? So I'll be honest with you, I was really like, oh, I need to get an actual picker, which is like this machine. So yeah, sorry about that. I'm literally like right in front of my front door, or right behind my front door, whatever. My front door is right there, and it's basically like a giant glass panel, and I have the curtain pulled back so that I have enough light to record. And the delivery man just like came up the steps, and my instinct was just to hide. I'm a mess, y'all. A mess. So, I think I was done talking about the fleece. Maybe not. I don't know. I was literally sitting in front of camera on my floor in my living room with like yarn and fiber everywhere. A giant IKEA bag full of fleece. I had to hide. I couldn't explain that. So anyway, I think I've talked enough about it, even if I didn't finish something I was saying. Oh, wool picker. So I really was like, oh, that's it, I'm getting a wool picker. Because I was actually thinking about making one, because you can buy plans online. And basically all it is a contraption with nails. It's super sketchy looking, right? It really does look like some sort of medieval torture device. With nails sticking out of it from here and then from here. And then there's this bench style where you like rock the one row of nails over the other, and it just picks apart the fiber, just like if you were using your hands. It pulls it apart, gets those tips unconnected from one another. It will also like let a lot of debris fall out of your fiber, like dust and dirt. I don't think it necessarily will get like straw and things out, but because I just love to stick on there, but it's possible. Anyway, so you can lose some debris and stuff that way. So I was like, oh, I don't need, they're very expensive. I'm sure if I made one, I'd be like, those things are a bargain. But it's hard to justify the expense, because like the cheapest ones you can get that aren't like really basic, like you can get one for like $150, but then they go all the way up to like $650. And the one that's $150, I'm not sure about. So like the next price point is like $350. So that's kind of hard to justify when you know you're not going to use it that often, right? Like you think, okay, how much of my work week would take to make that money? Am I really going to save that much time? Because it's not like I'm processing fleece every day. So I was like on the fence. And so then I started actually picking it. And I was like, I think I have this like internal argument every time I'm about to pick a fleece. And then I do it and I'm like, why was I thinking this was a big deal? It does take a considerable amount. I mean, it's time consuming, but you can do it while you're watching TV, or like I did it. A friend came over for coffee and I just picked it, and she picked a little, and just, you know, and it is a non-skilled thing to do, so you can incite other people to do it. So I'm like, really just settle down. And it's pleasant, like especially if it's a fleece that you like. It's another way to connect with the wool. It's another way to very closely see, oh, this part of the sheep is, this wool looks like this, and oh, this looks so different, and oh, look at the discolor variation, and there's just another way to connect with the process. So it was enjoyable. But now let's talk about knitting. Okay, so I have finished objects. The first finished object I have is a hat that I had been kind of just working on and off. It's not a pattern. If you want to say it's a pattern, then you can say it's a pattern from one of Ann Budd's handy dandy gaugey books. What are they called? Like book of accessories or something like that. You can get them at your library or your local bookseller or your local yarn shop, maybe even. Maybe not, because they're older books. But they give you, for example, the accessories ones has hat patterns, glove patterns, mitten patterns, all of that for whatever gauge you have, and multiple sizes, like children up to adults. So if you're looking for like just general patterns, good thing. So this is some hand spun that I had left over from my hitchhiker. And so it's probably a Sport to DK. So I think it's 112 stitches. Man, I am so red. Whatever. I think it's 112 stitches. And then just knit till I ran out of yarn, okay? Okay. Ta-da! Isn't it cute? So there's that. And then also I finished my Vertices Unite, which is by Mr. Stephen West. And this was such an enjoyable shawl pattern. I know I talked about a lot about last time in the last regular episode that I was already planning another one, which I still would like to do. So here it is. I did go with the I-cord edging. I talked a bit last time about thinking I was going to do a picot, and then I did a little bit of the picot, and I was like, you know what? No, definitely the I-cord works with how, I thought the picot would be a nice contrast to how linear the whole thing is, but I just didn't care for it on my personal thing. I'm not saying it's not a valid choice in somebody else's, but I preferred the I-cord. And really, it's it doesn't seem like it's too tight at all. I did not hard block this. I just soaked it in Tuft Woolens wash, soap wash thing, and then just laid it over a chair to dry. So yeah, It's super cute. This is the smaller size. The pattern is written for 2 sizes. And it really is, I mean, you could, the larger one definitely can be worn as a typical shawl. Oh my gosh, I'm so twisted up in so many ways. There's wool on this. My husband came, so I was picking that fleece. There were more second cuts than I realized there were. So I have like a pile of garbage that's just like random wool on the ground. He's like, why is there all this? What's happening? Like, honey, how long have we been together? How are you confused about the situation? So the bigger one you can has enough depth that you can definitely wear it for a shawl. But this one I really liked actually just for the scarfiness of it. Just as like a color pop. And these are just easy to wear sometimes when you're wearing it under a coat. Or just like as a little extra oomph. So you just get all the colors playing together. It's really fun. But without something that's difficult to manage. So again, that's Vertices Unite by Stephen West. Lots of different yarns in it. I'll put them all in the show notes. But there's Leading Men Fiber Arts. That's the greeny color. That's such a good acidy green. There is One More Round, which is the speckly. There's Lambyetosh, which is the other speckly. This is the Lambyetosh, but I'll put everything in and there's some Madelinetosh. So I'll put everything in the show notes so you can check it out. But it's a great way to use up odds and ends too, because as I said, that you don't have to do, this is a 5 color one, but you could do it in like, what did I say, 8 colors or something like that, or whatever. So you could use it as a total scrap buster. Or again, just the smaller one you could use with all of your odds and ends, like your bigger odds and ends left over from other projects. So I think it's a great pattern and very versatile. So the next thing I have to show you is actually no, I've talked enough. I'm very close to finishing my Buccaneer. I'll show that to you next time. And then the next thing I have to show you is my Ishnana cardigan by Ysolda Teague. And I am currently on the button band. And I'm only stopped in the button band because I don't have buttons. Because I was looking for these stupid buttons all week. So actually I kind of forgot that I had these teensy ones, but these are so teensy. Aren't they cool? They're like little corn sheaves, or corn ears, or wheat sheaves, or something. I don't know why they think the camera's going to do that, but let's pretend. There we go. Aren't those cute? They're vintage. But I also have these like cheapo little wood ones, which I also think would be very cute. I think these are going to be the ones that went out probably because I have more of them. And I tend to like a lot of little buttons. Even though I don't think that when I'm sewing them on. So these are, oh no, this just says especially for you. I don't know where I got these, sorry. But you can find them everywhere on Etsy or eBay. They're just little photo image transfer on wooden buttons. The pattern calls for 1/2-inch buttons, which are it's hard to find a good, 1/2-inch buttons are difficult, right? Like they're tiny and it's hard to get a good variety. And also with this being yellow, like my usual standby is to just do wooden buttons, but it's not gonna look, I didn't think it would look nice with the yellow. But anyway, so that's me talking a lot. So there it is. I'm working on the first button band, the one without buttons. I mean the one without buttonholes, with buttons. And I don't like to finish a button band as written until I have chosen a button. Because sometimes, you know, the pattern's written for a 1/2-inch button, but you find a 5/8 or 3/4 that you just really dig. And so I like to keep that option open. I mean, I want to stay relatively close to the suggestion, but also sometimes it's an issue of me just being like, this button band is already wider than the pattern is written for. And like, I just don't, if it's any narrower, I just feel like it's too skinny for me. I don't know. Like a weird personal thing. So I think what I'll also do for this one is perhaps, I don't know, I haven't decided if I'll do a ribbon to cover the steek or if I will do just some bias tape or something. But that's another thing I want to look for. But I think these buttons will work. And I think I'm ready to do that soon. So hopefully next time I'll have this either done or very close to done. It looks so messy on the inside. Because I did the tutorial, so like all the stitching is dark and like, whatever, it's fine. So there's that. So sorry about that. Memory card was full because I couldn't stop talking. Also because I forgot to delete last time's episode. Sorry, I'm just gonna wear them for the rest of the time. I'm sorry, it's distracting. Anyway, the last thing I have to show you is, while I was kind of stalling on that button band, I picked back up my Freja sweater. And Freja is a Brooklyn tweed pattern, which I think is actually by Jared Flood, but I am not entirely sure. So I should probably look that up to verify. But it is a pattern that uses the Quarry yarn, which I openly mocked when it came out. I don't think I mocked. Mock is a strong word. But I was a little eye-rolly about it, and now I'm totally making a sweater out of it. I'm conflicted, y'all. I never said I wasn't. Just saying. So, again, this is Freja, and it is by... Somebody, come on. Jared Flood, okay. And so mine is knit with Quarry in the Lazulite colorway, which is this very, very dark blue. It has little tiny bits of an aqua-y blue, but overall is a very blue-black kind of colorway. And so I picked that up, and I'm almost finished with the back. And it is a very long sweater. I guess I could have showed you the picture. It's a very long, short sleeve sweater with no sleeve cap. It actually just has a slight increase that happens here for the shoulder. And so because of its oversized nature, it ends up being more of a short sleeve. It has a very deep ribbing that you can do. But anyway, it just seemed like a nice, cozy, wintry thing. So there's that. So maybe this will be a Rhinebeck sweater. I'm also getting ready to cast on, as soon as I get this other finger weight sweater done, I'm going to cast on the another Ysolda pattern with my Harrisville tweed that I bought last year at Rhinebeck, because let's at least pretend like we're going to finish that. So, but this is just a very pleasant knit front, or excuse me, knit back, knit two side panels, seam them together, put some ribbing on there, put a big old shawl collar on it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But there's that. This just made me realize there will be an update. There's going to be an update August 1st for favorites, so library bags and granny square bags. And then there will be an update on Friday, August 3rd with all of the bounty that I brought home from SSK. So I believe there's some of these guys. There's several good Aran sweater size bags if you're getting ready to do fall sweaters or Rhinebeck sweaters. There's a ton of variety. So even if you're not usually like an update stalker, that's cool. There will still be lots of bags there, I'm sure, all weekend. Because it's a good amount of bags and a good variety. So I'm sure you will find something you like. And those will go up again, as I said, on Friday, August 3rd at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Those will primarily be ready to ship. There may be a few that I have, for example, like I might have fabric blanks cut that I didn't get ready for SSK in time. So there may be a few in there that are like a sewn to order option. But the vast majority of those are just going to be ready to ship. They'll go out like the Monday or Tuesday after. So, yay! So thank you so much for watching. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye!